Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Give us your name and DOC number, please.
Charles Layhaye, 459879.
Thank you. My name is Pearl Wise, and seated to my left is Mr. Roche, and to my right is Mr. Freeman. We comprise your panel this afternoon. Let me explain the process to you. I'm going to read some information into the record. Afterwards, we're going to interview, starting with Mr. Roche. After we complete our interview, we're going to ask the staff there to update us as to whatever they want us to know. After we hear from the staff there, we have speakers here. We have Mrs. Shirley LaFleur, your friend. She'll be speaking in support. We have some opposition. Miss Julia Dickens, the victim's aunt, she will be speaking. We have Miss Teresa Weeks, the victim's aunt, who will be speaking. And Ms. Catherine Gonzalez, the victim's mom, who will be speaking. We have another victim, Brian Gonzalez, who is present, but will not be speaking. So let me read the information into the record, and then we allow it at the appropriate time. We allow all the speakers to make their comments. And we appreciate their participation. So let me read your information on the record. Your name is Charles P. Layhaye. DOC number is 459879. Your date of birth is October the 11th of 1962. You're listed as a first offender. Charges are sexual battery, 9 counts. Sexual battery, 4 counts. Pornography involving a juvenile, 2 counts. Criminal knowledge of a juvenile, 1 count. Your total DOC sentence is 56 years. Your parole date is listed as June the 4th of 2022. You have a good time date of June the 14th of 2042. And your full term date of May the 19th of 2056. That sound correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Right. We can answer Mr. Roche.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Is the correct pronunciation of your last name Layhaye or
Layhaye?
Layhaye? Okay. Madam Chairman, we have Mr. Charles Layhaye. He's 59 years old, and he's been incarcerated for about 22 years. Is that correct?
About 20, yes, sir.
And he has a 56-year sentence. He's only served approximately 39% of the judge's sentence. He has a good time date in 2042, about 20 years from now. His full term date is in 2056, some 34 years from now. He's only made eligible today by Act 122 of the 2021 Louisiana State Legislative Session. Mr. Layhaye, tell the panel this afternoon why you have been incarcerated for the last 20 plus years.
Because I betrayed the trust of everybody around me.
What did you do, Mr. Layhaye?
I did things that most people don't ever want to talk about. And I did it to people that were vulnerable, and there's frankly just no excuse.
Does that include sexual misbehavior with juvenile males?
Yes, sir.
Does that include embezzling trust funds from children also?
No, sir.
You were not prosecuted or billed for that, but it stated in my information that when the victim's father died, you scooped in and in the name of God, you were told to take care of his family. And part of that was management of a trust fund for his three sons. Is that not true?
There were 4 children, sir, but that is one way, yes.
That is true. Were there
Yes,
four sons or 3 sons and a daughter?
3 sons and a daughter.
Okay, so, but the victims in this case were the 3 sons. Am I correct?
Correct.
So you were charged with 55 counts of illegal sexual behavior involving juvenile males. You pled guilty to 16 counts of the 55. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
9 counts of oral sexual battery, 4 counts of sexual battery, 1 count of pornography involving a juvenile, 1 count of causing knowledge of a juvenile, and 1 count of possession of pornography involving juvenile. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
You got convicted of 1 count of pornography, but how many sexual photographs, videos, and other sexual images that you have on your computer?
Sir, I don't know. The number was large. I never counted though to tell you. It was a large amount.
My record says 8,000.
Yeah.
They also say that you are a subscriber to European sexual websites that involve juvenile males. Is that correct?
That's correct.
The last progress report, and I'm going to pull it up right now, Mr. Lachey. The last report states that you are married. Are you still married?
No, sir, I'm not.
Okay, you're divorced.
Yes, sir.
Okay. It says that you are housed in medium custody. You have 8 write-ups, 20 plus years of incarceration, and you have a low risk assessment. It also says that you have a high school diploma, a college degree from LSU, and you have an MD degree from LSU Medical School in New Orleans, Louisiana. Is that true?
Yes, sir.
It also states that you did your residency in general surgery at George Washington University in Washington, D.C.
That's correct. Yes, sir.
How does an educated, intelligent man swoop in like a vulture when your colleague died in an airplane crash in 1994 and take advantage of his family?
That was not some plan from the beginning. I should have died in the airplane crash too. I was supposed to be there. I know it doesn't excuse anything, but with the best of intentions, as they say, the road to hell is paved with good intentions, and it just went downhill over time. And I don't care how much education you have. If you're damaged, if you're not well adjusted to how life is, it's anything can happen. Anyone can go wrong, and I definitely did.
So Lachey, an assertion was made that you medicated your colleague's wife so that her attention was diverted from her three sons and you took advantage of it.
I didn't medicate her other than what she was on before. I mean, I didn't.
What led to her drug addiction and early death at the age of 46 years old?
So that happened after I was incarcerated.
But it started long before you were incarcerated. Her drug addiction.
Yes, sir, I would say that's probably true.
What do you say about the allegation that you are purposely medicated to draw her attention away from the care of her children?
No, sir, that was never.
Programs that you completed anger management, HIV/AIDS. You completed all 4 phases of your sex offender treatment. Let's focus on your sex offender treatment now. What did you derive from your sex offender treatment that you didn't know at the time you were committing your crimes?
I thought that no one could feel like I did, or no one could act like I did, until I realized that a whole program is built around people who actually do feel that way.
Okay, what did you learn about the victims?
That I just never considered how they would think until it was too late.
So, Shay, according to my information, some of the victims were never identified by you, and we don't know exactly how many victims were involved in your 55 counts of sexual misbehavior. Today is the day of honesty. Let's be honest.
Yes, sir.
Did you victimize all 3 of your colleagues' sons?
No, sir, not the last one. It may involve his 2 older children. His 2 older children.
Did it involve any of their first cousins?
Yes,
Did it involve friends of your victim?
yes.
It's an estimate, how many victims do you think was involved in your sexual misbehavior?
Seven, 8. I really, I mean,
8, 9.
no, yes, sir.
So basically, you continued this activity until your wife discovered the pornographic pictures on your laptop and reported to the authority. Am I correct?
Correct.
Have you ever had any issues with drugs or alcohol?
No, sir.
No history of drug abuse or alcohol abuse?
No, sir.
Tell us about your transition plan. Where do you plan to work and where do you plan to live?
Well, right now, I would return home to my parents, to the house where I was raised.
And that's in Bill Platt,
Yes, sir.
okay? And do you have any employment lined up?
Not at this time. No, sir. My first concern is my parents in the last year since the pandemic have really been very in need of help, sort of to get things done.
What means of support do you have for yourself if not seeking any employment?
The finances of my family are adequate to support me, and then I would also want to find employment once I get out, either in the medical field or in the last 15 or the last 20 years, I've been doing adult basic education, and I seem to be fairly successful at that too.
Mrs. O'Shea, I don't know if you are aware, but full-time employment is a requirement while you're on supervision.
Right, and I would definitely be fully employed. I'm not somebody to sit around and do nothing.
Board law, do you have any comments, remarks, observations?
Yes, sir. You know, his institutional record is impeccable. He's done a lot of things. He's a model offender here. I guess my only concern is his risk management and sex offender treatment was 17 years ago when he took it in 05. And, you know, I would be remiss not to say that I just, he has failed to show me that he has remorse for what he's done in the pre-parole hearing and today.
It shows all over his answers, his visual, and I got the same impression. There's no remorse and there's no empathy for the victim. Madam Chairman?
Thank you. Mr. Charles, you indicated that the education did not have anything to do with this. Did it start with you watching pornography?
Probably, yes, ma'am.
What age did you start watching pornography?
As a teenager.
The teenager. So what would you say to anybody who's watching this today? What would you say to them about the dangers of pornography?
Oh, it's definitely a gateway. It definitely desensitizes you to things, without a doubt.
Okay. All right, thank you, sir. Thank you for answering my question. We'll hear from Ms. Shirley LaFleur at this time. Yes, ma'am. What do you want us to know?
Hello. I have known Charles Layhaye since he was a boy, about 11 years old. And I don't know what happened to him in his youth to cause him to have these urges that he has had. He has always been a person who was caring and loving to his parents. he he has always wanted to help other people. And I think he has shown that while he's been incarcerated by the work he has done with other inmates to help them to get their GEDs and to change their lives for the better. His greatest concern right now is that his parents are failing their health, they're elderly, and he has a grave concern for them and would like to be able to go home to take care of them. I also, I think someone said that they don't see any signs of remorse. Charles and I have communicated over the years while he has been in prison, and he has stated his remorse. At times, he is a self-contained, quiet person, and so I don't think that remorse is that obvious to someone who doesn't know him well, but he has grave remorse for the harm that he has done. And I think that he would go back and take care of his family, and they live on a family farm. And so certainly he would be fully employed just helping his father take care of the farm.
All right, thank you. Thank you for participating today. We appreciate hearing from you. Oh, at this time, we hear from Ms. Lydia, victim's aunt. I'm so sorry for messing up your name.
Hi, it's Jolie Vaillant. It's French. It's complicated.
And I'm from North Louisiana, so you know what it does to me.
Yeah, yes, ma'am. I did send in a letter that you have on behalf of the Weeks and Ardwan families. And I do agree with the board when y'all said that this was his time to be honest, and he is not being honest. My brother-in-law died in October of 1994. He started abusing my nephews in 1995. My sister met with Mark Carrell, the district attorney, on this case, and she herself identified 12 victims. And then she had to come outside to vomit. I was not allowed in there with her because it involved minors, but she had to identify her children and several other children. To this day, she has never told anyone who those children were. He is the only one who knows, and Mark Carrell, of course, because the records have been sealed. He's not honest. James Piker, the investigator who investigated this case, had a career over 30 years. And he said this was the worst case he had ever seen. He had nightmares about it. The judge who sentenced him called him an evil predator who was beyond redemption and could never be rehabilitated. He started abusing my nephews in 95, medicating my sister, which led to her drug addiction. So whether he was in jail or not at the time of her death and her continued abuse, he was the main contributor to that. And in my opinion, and our entire family's opinion, he is solely responsible for her death. He's not even being accountable for the stuff we have on video. So how can you expect him to tell the truth about her addiction and the money he stole from my nephews, the blood money he stole from their father's death? I do agree with him when he said he was not thinking, because if anybody was thinking, they would never commit such heinous acts. And his supporter wants to mention his parents and the community, but what about the community that he betrayed? The families he betrayed. We considered him family. Why does he have the option of parole? He's been in jail for 20 years. You know, my nephew's sentence for what he did to them? A lifetime. They have a lifetime. to deal with the nightmares that they have. Joey is a heroin addict who is currently incarcerated due to this addiction for what he did to them. Jacob has been diagnosed agoraphobic. He is living with my elderly parents who was robbed of their grandchildren and their daughter due to what this monster did. When does my family get parole? When does Joey get parole? When does Jacob get parole? When does the entire community, for God's sake, when does his family get parole? His son. When? Tell me, when does this nightmare stop?
I know, I agree.
No, stop. I agree with this monster. When he told Mr. Bruce in court that his words, his quote was, "I don't want any mercy. I'm throwing myself on the mercy of the court. I want to be punished." Well, you know what? I want him to be punished. I want him to continue to be punished, because you know what? He should have died that day instead of James, because James was a good and honorable man, and his children and his wife and our families never deserved this monster who preyed upon us. I'm sorry. No, I'm not sorry. I'm not sorry. I'm not sorry. And I hope he dies in prison, because that is what he deserves. Thank you for listening to me.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Miss Teresa Woods.
Yes, ma'am. I'm usually the more rational of the family, but he said something today that I need answered. When he was asked if it was cousins of Joey and Jacob, I want to know, were my kids involved?
Yes, Teresa.
Oh my God. Who?
Wait, talk to us. You have to talk to us and not to him.
I'm sorry.
Talk to us.
I just need him to say who. I just need to know. This has been 20 years.
Get with the victims coordinator and we can get that worked out. This is not the forum for that.
Thank you. I disagree with everything Jolie said. Chuck was my friend.
No.
We spoke many times, numerous. He wanted to marry Lori, and I don't know if it was just to get closer to her kids. I don't know what the reason was, but this has just been a nightmare. And as Jolie stated, her kids will never recover from this. We can't even reach Joey. We try to put him in programs. He runs away. He's scared of everything. Jacob will not talk to anyone but my one of my sons.
Yes, ma'am. We got your letter. I want you to know your letter is in the file and we have read your letter. Mrs. Gonzalez.
Yes. I'm gonna try. I agree with everything that the girls said. Laurie was a very good friend of mine and was addicted to codeine, basically because of the prescriptions that she would get from him, from Chuck. Maybe he didn't physically write them, but he didn't do anything about it. He knew that she was getting codeine. He knew that she had stolen prescription pads from him. He didn't do anything about it. In my honest opinion, I'm not saying that anybody else has to believe this. He knew he kept her drugged so he could have access to those boys. I trusted him. He lied to me. He lied to my husband. He made us believe that he was not a predator to our son. We didn't believe our son. We still feel guilty for not believing our son. He has never admitted to what he did to our son. Our son could not speak to you today because he doesn't think that he could get through it. And I know he couldn't, because if I can't, he can't. We didn't believe him. He knows now that we believe him, but it took Chuck going to court. We should have followed through more. Chuck blamed it on him being jealous of our marriage, because I'm not his biological mother, but I'm his mother. And Chuck manipulated the meeting we had with him. Even manipulated Jolie's husband, because he was with us, because he trusted Chuck and he was there to support him. Joey, Jacob, Janie, and Jordan all trusted him. And I want to refer back to a statement that he made. He said that his education had nothing to do with what he did. And I disagree. Nobody else other than a physician that had access to the hallucinating drugs could have done this to those kids repeatedly. Repeatedly. And they didn't know it. I don't know the exact name of the drug he used, but I'm suspicious and I'm very speculative that it was Versed, where you don't know, you're really awake, but you don't remember anything that happened while you're underneath the confines of that drug. And while, like we all said, he's up for parole, my son has 2 young boys that and a wife that have a altered life because of the way that their father thinks, because the way that their father is worried about if someone else on the face of this earth will have access to his kids and do this. Overprotective, can't play with certain people, can't go spend the night with anyone but family. And the lack of trust that he had in me and his father that we regret, totally regret. But I'm sure you, the panel, can even imagine as a parent, if you have kids, that you didn't believe your child. And it was true. He didn't just lie about stealing a piece of candy. He told us the truth about someone touching him inappropriately, and we didn't believe him. I have to live with that. My husband has to live with that. Our son still has to live with that, even though we may have come to a point in our lives where we know we were wrong. He knows we know we were wrong. And he's listening, and I know he knows how much I love him. And I know that he knows that the education of this monster manipulated all of us. And I know, no, he didn't want to marry Lori. Well, he did want to marry Lori, Teresa, but I agree with you. It was to get access to those kids. And I am just so very thankful that that poor woman that did marry him, so he didn't have any more access. And God bless Jordan. Him and Janie are the only 2 children out of that family that are social, interactive, because the other 2 are incapable of it because of what they have been through. Incapable. And Joey, I haven't seen Jacob in years, but I'm telling you right now, Joey is not even recognizable. You wouldn't recognize him if he walked in front of you right now. And just, if I could have a second just to review my notes because I don't want to forget anything because this is so important. It's
I'm
so
trying to-
important. He speaks of his parents needing him. With Laurie's death, those 4 kids became orphans. They don't have the option to take care of their parents. He shouldn't either. I'm pretty sure that should be enough for y'all. I want to thank you for allowing me this time to speak.
Thank you. Thank you for being here and having the courage to speak. Thank you. All right, Mr. I guess your nickname is Chuck, huh? All right, Mr. Chuck, is there anything you want to tell this panel before we render our decision?
No, ma'am, I'm not saying that education is, it sounded like as if education would prevent you from being or feeling or doing, and education didn't do this. I did this. I failed. And I failed mainly because I could never deal with the fact that I was gay. And I could never deal with the fact that my experiences as a child probably affected me as well. And the biggest mistake was never telling anybody when I had a chance, when I was young. And the reason I may not feel remorseful or may not show it is because, frankly, words are not adequate. Words are not adequate. I promise you, if I could die today and make all this go away, I would gladly go. I just can't, though. All I can do is try and do, because words are not going to fix this. All I can do is every day try and make something a little bit better. And that's what I do every day. You can ask him. Every day I get up and I go to school and I try and help somebody else, because because it is. I'm overwhelmed at what I did, and I don't know what else I can do, either dying or trying to do something a little bit every day. I just don't know what else I can do. And I've asked other people, it's like, and I just don't. I can't tell you how sorry I am, but just saying that's inadequate. It doesn't mean anything. It doesn't change anything. I'm sorry. I don't know what else to say or do, ma'am. I really don't know. If I could die today and it would take care of all this, just as the judge said long ago, the bleeding had to stop somehow, I agree.
All right, thank you, sir. Thank you. Panel ready to vote?
Yes.
Mr. Roche.
Mr. Lachey, I'm going to tell you my routine. I listen to the interview of my colleagues, and then I make a decision. I make my decision before the victim speaks, because oftentimes the victim's testimony can get very emotional. And I don't want to make a decision based upon the emotional testimony of the victim. So my decision on your case was recorded on my laptop long before the victims had a chance to give their testimony. I just wanted to let you know that basically I'm making a decision on information that I received and read in an interview with you this afternoon. Mr. Layhaye, based upon overwhelming express opposition from the legal community, the judge, the DA's office, the sheriff's office, the chief of police in your jurisdiction, a statement opposing your release from your former wife, who is fighting for her safety and the safety of her son. You have opposition from the victim's family. The age of your victims is another reason I'm denying you. You took advantage of in some cases, juvenile male victims. The nature of your offenses is horrendous. And quite frankly, Mr. Lachey, I think right now you are a risk to public safety. For all those reasons, I'm going to deny your request for early release.
Thank you. Mr. Mhm.
Yes, ma'am. First off, I want to thank all of the victims that showed up to testify today. I can't imagine, and I do have children myself. I cannot imagine what you're going through. But I have seen many of families. I was director of probation for over 35 years, and I've seen these type of offenses just ruin great people. So hang in there and back these kids as best y'all can. Well, they're not kids, they're grown up. And Mr. Layhaye, I have to agree with Mr. Roche. I'm going to deny you parole today.
Sir, at this point, you have two denials. I concur with my colleagues. My vote is to deny as well. A lot of my decision is based on the information that was gathered today at this hearing. I want to commend you on the work that you're doing, helping people get their high set. I want to urge you to continue to do that. I want to urge you to retake the sex offender treatment program and just retake it. And maybe you go in touch with who you are. There was an indication that you need substance abuse treatment. There was some indication somewhere about that. So explore that. I know. So explore that further. You deny any kind of drug use. I think I read that. If not, then so be it. But today, sir, you've been denied. Best
Yes, ma'am.
wishes to you.
Thank you.
I think for me, this was the most traumatizing hearing that I've seen. The moment, I think it was Teresa, when she asked, was my son, and he looked at her and said yes. And the anguish on both their face, it just hit me differently. I think I cried a little during this. The anger, the trauma, the just I can't help but thinking that he took pleasure in telling her that her son was involved, that he had done that to her son. I just can't help it, but thinking that he took pleasure in having the opportunity to do that. I thank the board for not interrupting the victims. If you're new to this, they often do, but not this panel. You wouldn't get it from Mr. Roche, Ms. Wise, and Mr. Freeman. You would get it from Ms. Renatza or Arabella, Wise, Mr. Wise. and what's his name? The chiropractor guy. I did not like, of course, Miss Wise to get on her, but he, to call him Chuck, it's not appropriate. Chuck. Then he goes, his classic manipulative roach self, in his summary speech, he says, I struggled because I didn't realize that I was gay. And it's like, are you kidding me? What does that even mean? This has nothing to do with that. What? You're a pedo. You're a monster. Maybe you didn't realize you're a sociopath. Maybe you didn't realize you're a monster. Maybe you didn't realize you're a cockroach, but gay? He was a doctor, but not just a doctor. He found a way to build the most trust to the point that he was in the will of that man. Not his wife, not their kids' grandparents, but little did he know he signed over the trust of his children and their future to a monster. Some of you might be saying, how does he even have a chance? How does he even have a chance for parole? And this is, I guess, the good of an example that we have seen, what you might call collateral damage, if that's appropriate to call it that, of Act 122. Act 122 was enacted with, to use the cockroach's ridiculous twisted version of the line, a road or a path to hell is paved with good intentions, is that this act was designed to give people who were given life sentences for habitual offender charges, nonviolent crimes, for dealing, who were given life sentences for robberies. But like every political thing out there, they always have to have people that bake things into it. You want it to pass? Well, we're going to bake things into it. You can even see here where it's redacted what they wanted it to say. The provision of this paragraph shall not apply to any person who has been convicted. Could be the redaction isn't real. I'm not sure. Of a crime, violence defined of, or sex offense defined of, when the offense was committed after 2014. Why is it after 2014? Why is it not? Why is that there? If someone commits a terrible crime, they should not qualify under Act 122. But they somehow got it in there. And the problem is that what I would argue is a beautiful act when you see people who have been locked up for 50 years for or life sentences for possession because they were addicts or because they had robbed a store without a weapon. And they did it when they were 20, and now you're sitting looking at them and they're 70 years old. Yeah, Act 122 is good for them. But what fell under this umbrella, and we have seen hearings, are monsters, but this is the biggest monster. And the idea that all of his victims are casualties of this act is terrifying and unfair. when a judge initially gave him the sentences, he didn't think that he would get out on parole. Now, how would this cockroach did not get 20 life sentences, whatever, is still mind-boggling to me, mind-blowing. He took a deal. We're going to have to. And also something I don't understand is that it said, and maybe it's a typo, but it says he has a good time date of 2042, and you can't have good time dates for these type of offenses. So what is going on? Because if it's 2042 today, he is 60 years old. 2042, that would be 20 years from now. He would be 80. That's still too, he could still have another 20 years on this earth. He needs to die in prison like they said. He was a doctor. He was trusted. They found him with. Can you imagine the assistant district attorneys going through the information and then sees her son is a victim? She goes outside and vomits. And even with that, they can't give this thing 20 life sentences? I don't understand. This is one of the worst cases that we've seen, and maybe in the ever. When in the news, what in the past 30 years have you heard about more of a notorious offender? How is this not worse than some of the bigger cases that we've seen where people get? I don't understand how this happened. Here, he pleads not guilty. The current charges against Dr. Charles Layhaye stands at 61 counts outlined in the papers that portray the surgeon as a predator whose deviant sexual behavior with children has ranged from production, sexual, and young victims. Meanwhile, the defense attorney, imagine being his defense attorney, Mike Small, says his client is getting inhumane treatment under the guise of unalive watch. He's been held in a room and forced to sleep on a metal bed. Poor guy. Oh, we feel so bad for him. This was when he was first arrested. He has no clothing other than a cloth gown. He hasn't been allowed to shower, brush his teeth, or shave. Poor bugger. In essence, he's been denied the things that are essential to basic human dignity. The irony in that statement, Mike Small, is glaring. Basic human dignity. Small says mistreatment of his client may stem from allegations against him. It certainly appears to me that he's singled out because of his notoriety of this case. I don't know that, but I feel safe in saying it. Nah, no one cares yet. He becomes a doctor, and then you become an attorney and take on these clients. You can choose who you take on. Shame on you. For a paycheck, huh? However, the owner-operator of Pine Prairie Correctional Facility is being kept, says the sheriff and judge's request. The doctor is on the highest level of unalive watch. LCS Corrections Service Manager Dick Harbinson says blankets and clothing are withheld to prevent from doing anything that would unalive himself. Well, at least he's suffered. There's other docs in here that Richard found, and I'll put in there, but there's just not, it's not really stuff to go through. There's some interesting things. this is something that would, if it happened today, it would be plastered over the news. I mean, it would be, I guess it's just time it happened. It wasn't, you didn't have the internet like it was. You didn't have, it's just, it might have been on the news for a little bit, for a few days, and people forget. So he combined maximum sentences of 160. He pled guilty, said the combined, okay. It was a plea bargain he took with the Paris District Attorney. Sentence, talking about that, where was the Assistant District Attorney? This is a huge case, and this is part again of why we do this, because this probably was a big hit. It was probably on every newspaper in Louisiana. It was on their TV stations, and they probably put press statements how we are fighting to put these. And then not so many years later, 20 years later, and they don't even show up. They don't take the time to make a 3-minute statement over Zoom. It's pathetic. That's why we call them out until they start showing up. It says here they did a total of 160 years in prison, 130 of which will be without parole. So maybe he did get the long sentence and somehow Act 122 cut it. I don't understand that. The defense attorney, Michael Small, said he had advised not to accept either offer. Small said he hoped to work a better deal for his client and succeeded to move into trial. Fully understood. Well, of course you did. You get more money going to trial. Small. However, in the end, and in order to, this is what he says, however, in the end, in order to spare young victims in this case and their families further anguish of having appear publicly and testify at hearings of trial, he instructed me yesterday to accept the plea offer. Yes, you're a real hero. The plea bargain that he rejected carried a 50-year sentence, 30 of which will be served without parole. The plea bargain was accepted, leaves the sentencing up to Rosas to make recommendations. Let's give a huge salute to his wife who discovered it. And they said she was terrified of him and for her son. But I know it seems strange that we need to give a salute to his wife, but we have seen far too many cases where the wife finds it. We saw just one recently. The wife found it, the stuff on the computer, and that he was abusing her own son. And she said, I promise not to go to the police if you promise to stop the abuse. That happened. You saw it. So you just never know. Yeah, this is all it was. May 1st, 2003, a state appeals court. That's all he got, 56-year prison sentence. 56 years. Now, I guess at the time, they think 56 years would have been enough that he would die, and it's just easier to do that. But then with Act 122, and somehow he has good time, he can technically get out when he's 80 years old. His full would be 2056. He's not getting out. He's not getting out with that. That would be another, he'd be like 90s. But 2043. I don't know how someone doesn't just get flat, like multiple life sentences. Louisiana. You do. Take a plea deal. We'll worry about it later. And then you see the victims that have to come here, and and pour their heart out and their pain, and you hear about how the kids' lives have just completely diverted. The court has changed forever, and this is why we do this. You need to see that monsters exist, and evil does exist. And there are people that belong locked up forever. And if you didn't see it, you might not believe it. This one broke my heart. This is tough. With that, I'll let you go.